Welcome everybody, my name is Night Reader, but I am actually now known as Mr. Sushi Panda. Where have I been actually? I have been just focusing on drawing and creating content by that means. I originally thought that I was going to stop making videos like this, but somebody by the name of Melissa kept messaging me on one of my videos saying she would love another part of the Opera Phantom Discord. Now, I generally wasn't planning on making this video, but her persistence on wanting another video kind of was like, well, okay, it's not going to take that long. It's not going to be that long to be able to just read something and put it out there so she could enjoy. I really don't mind that, but then I was like, well, I don't do My Little Pony content because I am honestly not a brony anymore. But saying that, I still love to read. I have been reading for a while now, and I could say I'm pretty good at it. With that being said, it's just give me a lot more time to practice, especially like, well, if there's people out there that really do want to listen to me read, then that's fine and grand and dandy. If not, then that's perfectly fine. Just reading overall is my favorite, and I'm an advocate of reading, so people should really read more because I've seen it develop a lot in my life since I've started reading. I started to think more clearly. I started to remember more words and use more words in my day-to-day. That being said, this video is gonna be quite long because the story is about 6,000. The first time I read this, it took me about 50 minutes. 50 minutes just to get it finished. Now that's a lot of time for one video, so I'm not gonna split it up into parts because there's no need for that, but I'm just saying that if you get bored, just go off and then do something else, then come back if you want to continue the reading. Yeah, other than that, thank you so much for joining in, and it means a lot. Anyways, here's for you, Melissa. Happy 2018, and let's start this off with a bang. Masquerade. The elegant carriage pulled up into the opera house, causing several ponies on the street to stop and whisper among themselves. The driver quickly jumped down from his seat to open the door for the carriage's occupant. Several mares who were walking stopped and stared at the figure that arose from the carriage. Those who were holding fans immediately began to rapidly fan themselves. He was a tall stallion, slim but muscular, and was a fashion at the time. He was elegantly dressed in a gray suit with a high collar, his black shoes polished and glistening, his white tie tucked into his slightly ruffled tunic. A top hat made of black satin crawled his golden blonde mane, which featured feathered just slightly off his neck. He tapped it to the mares, what a gent, who were admiring his emergence. He stepped down from the carriage steps, muttering words to his coachcole while he dusted himself off. He lifted his eyes to the opera house and smiled. His face was very clean shaved and posture straight, his teeth white and eyes a sparkling green. And when he began to walk up those steps, there seems to be an air of powerful that just followed him with every step. He was like the sun, dazzling at first sight and forever burning an image within your mind's eyes after he had disappeared from view. Sounds like me, honestly. Ha ha. Inside the opera house, things were well underway for the opera that would be kicking off the season in a matter of days. Dancers were frantically placing themselves while stage hooves worked on setting and sets and the orchestra turned in tuning their instruments. I am sorry about that. Fluttershy's father was turning out to be the toast of the orchestra. In a matter of hours, he was close to perfecting the score for the upcoming opera. The managers were well pleased with their decision. Sadly, Fluttershy herself was not having the same good fortune. When Fleur de Lis first discovered that Fluttershy was her custom pony, she had a fit that could rival the most spoiled of fillies. She screamed, stomped her feet, swore in Italian, using that finger gesture, and then stomped off to lock herself away in her dressing room for a good hour. While the manager stood outside her door pleading for her to come, Fluttershy rolled her eyes to the whole incident, taking that despite Sandra Fleur-de-Lis's elegant dress and years of stage experience, a dog could both sing and act better. Damn, Fluttershy, you savage. While their managers pleaded, Fluttershy brushed herself with her task, mending costumes that had snares and iron ones with wrinkles. She dedicatedly laid them out, examining them closely to see if she had missed any repair work, all the while feeling if somebody or something was watching her. Ever since she and her father have arrived that morning, Fluttershy had the sudden suspicion she was being watched. By whom? She had no idea. For every time she turned her head to look, she saw no one. The feeling was strange. Most of the time she felt clingy and uneasy, but she would also feel admired, and she blushed when she recalled feeling somewhat aroused. She shook her head to the whole thing, believing that once again it was her imagination running wild, and any other thoughts of the matter were quickly disposed of as Fleur-de-Lis returned. Dabbing her nose, and eyes with the handkerchief Flim had given her, Flim Flam and Fancy Pants followed, each following their air with praisings to her. The whole thing made Fluttershy sick. Fleur-de-Lis waved her hooves, which temporarily stopped the three stallions from making further idiots of themselves, and turned to Fluttershy. I've decided I will allow you to continue being my constant pony. She sweetly purred, a fake smile caressing the corners of her lips. Fluttershy stared at the mare. Fleur-de-Lis' sweet smile was beginning to fade. She swift side to side and was tapping her hoof and is waiting for Fluttershy to fall to her knees to thank God above her granting her this fine honor. Was the mare that conceited? Well, Fluttershy jumped at the situation, sudden bark, and escaped the prima donna's lips. Fleur-de-Lis quickly smoothed back and slick pink curls that had escaped from her shout. She smiled at Fluttershy again and said in that sweet voice she had used earlier, "Have you nothing to say, my dear?" Fluttershy wanted to tell the mare what she really thought. She wanted to tell Fleur-de-Lis she had no talent, that while she shouted across the stage like a peacock, she sounded like a crow. She wanted to tell the mare that her behavior was disgusting and that there was no more important things going on in the world than one's hair, looks, or one's fabrics one dress is made from. She wanted to scream and perhaps even strike the mare, but she remembered her father and how desperately they needed this. So she swallowed her pride and lifted her chin. I have repaired the silk gown you will be planning to wear for the opening gala. Those were words I was not planning on saying. Fleur-de-Lis stared at the mare. Fluttershy showed no emotion on her face, but inside she was laughing at the blank expression she was receiving from the so-called great star. Not the answer Fleur-de-Lis was expecting, let alone looking for. But it was not one she could scream at either. "What a smart little thing you are," she said through clattering teeth, mustering all the sweetness her voice could create. Fake pleasantness was perhaps the worst acting Fleur-de-Lis could do. Fluttershy smiled, placing the ground gently back down. Now drop the bass. Everybody go. I am so sorry for that. Fluttershy smiled, placing the ground gently back down to the table, while the managers and Fancy Pants exchanged worried looks between one another, knowing that the young mare was playing with fire. "Well," Lamb interrupted, "I must say, keep up the good word, mademoiselle. You'll be fine in the opera business, I'm sure." Fleur-de-Lis only gave Fluttershy a cold smile. "Yes, my dear, do show me what else you've accomplished. I can say that life in the country has perfected your skills in humble domestic craft." Oh, shit! I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Fluttershy flinched. I am so sorry. Fluttershy smiled. No. Alright, Fleur-de-Lis only gave Fluttershy a cold smile. Yes, okay, we already read that part. Y'all need to read it again. Fluttershy finished. Fluttershy flinched in the citing words, but refused to show Fleur-de-Lis any sign of their effect. I shall. There's one that I have painted together that was literally falling into pieces. She turned to retrieve the dress while Fleur-de-Lis took the hot iron Fluttershy had used earlier and placed it hot side up near Fluttershy's legs. That's lazy little. The second the mare turned back, she gave a yelp of pain as her skin made contact with the iron, causing her to drop the dress and her hooves onto the floor, thus sending pins and pieces flying every which way, and to knock the iron over her elbow and land on a beautiful white silk gown. Ah, you clumsy little fool! Look what you have done to my costume! The managers turned quickly to Fleur-de-Lis' shouts, and Fancy Pants was by her side in a second. My darling, my darling, what happened? What did the wretched mare do? Fluttershy was still rubbing the painful burn on her legs before she realized what had happened. She grasped and lifted her iron off the dress, but the damage had already been done. A large brown stain and several tiny holes remained on the dress as souvenirs from the iron. Fluttershy lifted her shocked eyes to Fleur-de-Lis' surprise and emerged upon seeing the shrink in the mare's eyes. This little idiot ruined 2 of my costumes, she shouted to both Fancy Pants and the managers who had rushed to her side. She has not only ruined the gown, I must wear to the frost, sticking atrocious pieces of fabric to it, but she has also burnt a hole to the silk gown I must wear to the handball. Flim and Flem stared at Fluttershy, not sure what to say, but knowing if they did not do something quickly, Fleur-de-Lis would explode. Just don't stand there, fire this witch little thing. Fancy Pants shouted in defense of Fleur-de-Lis. He attempted to wrap his arms around her, but she shrugged it off immediately. Fire her! Flim asked. No. Flim. Fire her? Flim asked, glancing at Flim with worried eyes. Flim. Okay. With only 5 days till the opening night of the opera season, they needed Time Turner to play the orchestra more than ever. If they fired the mare, they knew they would have lost him too, but they couldn't displease Fleur-de-Lis either. They were in a very tight spot, indeed. Perhaps we can come to an arrangement, Sana. An arrangement? Fleur-de-Lis explained. There will be no arrangements, this stupid little... A gulf-mouthed cough interrupted. Fleur-de-Lis shrieks. I beg your pardon, but is this a bad time? The managers and Fleur-de-Lis turned their heads and all exclaimed at once, Monsieur! Oh god, this part. Fluttershy, whose cheeks were still burning red from both Fleur-de-Lis' cruel words and foul tricks, stared at the stallion with whom the others appeared to be immersed. He was a very tall, handsome, blonde, and bright white coat, and obviously wealthy, judging by the clothes he wore. He looked right past the admiring managers who were cowering around him and stared into his eyes. She felt her knees go weak, then reached out to the couch at the table at her side. Good day, he said with an elegant bow of his head. Fluttershy swallowed the lump in her throat and gave the stallion a smile of courtesy. He smiled at her and he felt the strange feeling in her knees again. Well, who is this pretty little thing? He asked the managers who were still singing praises into his ears. That's how I imagine them just doing it, like praising him in here, just going. Okay. Who? Oh, that's just the new costume pony, Monsieur. Who are you so pleased to come to see us today? As you can see, we are well underway in preparing the opening gala. Yes, yes, it is all looking wonderful, Flam, the stallion said with a wave of his hoof. With his wave of his hoof. His mouth still remained on Fluttershy, though. However, and what's your name, Mademoiselle? Mademoiselle, I am French now. Oui, bagels, toast. I am sorry. I am so sorry. What am I doing? What am I doing with my life? Fluttershy stared at a long time at the stallion, trying to find her voice, but it was Fleur-de-Lis who spoke in her stead. What does it matter? The mare is incompetent with costumes, as I'm sure she is with everything. She thrusted the burning dress in the stallion's face. See what I had to put up with, Mizia? She pouted. The stallion gave a weak smile to the prima donna before turning and looking at the managers for answers. Flim glanced at Fluttershy, trying to remember the name. Shy. Fluttershy. And I take it, stir, not chicken. I believe. Fluttershy frowned and lifted her chin, looking directly into the handsome stallion's eyes. My name is Chicka Slim Shady. My name is Wicka Word. Silence, Fleur-de-Lis said. Oh, okay. Sorry, Fleur-de-Lis. Fleur-de-Lis barked, throwing the bog down in Fluttershy's face. She then turned and smiled sweetly out to the genticles. My dear Mizia, had I been exclaiming the sunrise visit, I would have dressed more elegantly for you. The stallion smiled warmly at Fleur-de-Lis, and she batted her eyes, causing Fancy Pants to fidget as jealousy. Oh, what a floozy! Fancy Pants glanced back and forth between the handsome stallion and the crowd that had burnt her, the two acting as if they knew each other rather well. Well, Monsieur, we have some matter of business to discuss with you. There have been some notes. All in good time, Flam, the stallion answered without taking his eyes off of Fleur-de-Lis. I must have some matters of business to go over with Sona Fleur-de-Lis. She has written to me of her displeased with the way things are run here. He glanced at the managers, the handsome stallion smile disappearing. He glanced at the managers. The handsome smile disappeared when being replaced with a serious frown. Displeased? Both stallions stuttered, looking at one another at Fleur-de-Lis in horror. Yes, Fleur-de-Lis snapped. Yes! Fleur-de-Lis snapped, licking her arms with the handsome stallions, much displeased, and hearing the mare is now on the top of my list, she began. Oh my god, that was supposed to be her. To lead the stallion away from the managers, who were too flabbergasted to utter a single word. Come, Monsieur, she said with a twinkle in her skirts. Let us go to my dressing room to talk things over. If you know what I mean. Ha ha ha. The stallion turned her head back to Fluttershy, gave her one last charming smile before he literally dragged away by the bush uppershot. Brush. Fluttershy's face continued to burn as she watched the two walk away. Her emotions confused. Yes, the stallion was indeed handsome, and his smile appeared warm and inviting, while his words and manners were quite charming. But there was something about him that didn't seem right. It was probably the company he seemed to prefer to keep. Yes, indeed. Marvelous. The manager finally dashed away, both pale and shuddered, worried about what must be done to please Fleur-de-Lis. Fancy Pants immediately followed in Fleur-de-Lis, awake, trying to catch up to the pair. Fluttershy sighed, looking at the burnt costume and her hooves, wishing she had intentionally caused burn with Fleur-de-Lis in the costume. She bent down to retrieve the dress and had fallen apart on the ground with a small voice caught her attention. I can't believe he actually talked to you. That was horrible. I'm sorry about that. Fluttershy glanced up, seeing that the voice belonged to a petite dancer with long purple hair and white eyes. It was Twilight Sparkle, the lead dancer and daughter of the dance mistress. Do you know who that was? She asked Fluttershy, her voice filled with excitement. Fluttershy shook her head, confused at Twilight's behavior. Twilight, was it him? Has he come back? Twilight glanced and nodded her head to several of the other dance mares that were standing back a little whiles. The group burst into squeals and excited shrieks. Fluttershy needed answers. Who is he? She asked, rather irritably. The mares looked at one another, rolled their eyes, and then exploded into giggles again. Giggy. Not Quagmire, but giggles. Twilight, however, kept for her composure. At least enough to explain. He's Prince Blueblood. Ugh. Fluttershy's blank expression forced the mare to continue. The highest paying patron on the Mare Opera House. Yeah, I can't do a good Twilight voice, I'm sorry. At least it all fitted together. And that was why the managers were falling all over themselves and why they panicked after the last mention of this place. Fluttershy stared after the direction of the prince has headed. She stared at the direction the prince had headed, feeling like a fool for thinking that for a moment he admired her, and that was the thought of him kind of charming. She had lived in the country all her life, but Fluttershy was no fool. A stallion with wealth and title only looked at a mare in her situation for one thing. She's talking about sex. Mares, the dancers, mares! That was weird. The dancers stopped their giggles and quickly stomped back to where they should have been practicing. Madame Luna emerged from the curtains and looked crossly at all of them. Twilight! She bawled at the embarrassing mares. What is the meaning of this? Twilight fidgeted a bit, and bit her lip. I'm sorry, Mama. It was just... Madame Luna lifted a dark elbow, awaiting her daughter's answers. It was just, well, we saw the Prince Blueblood, and Madame Luna's face paled at the name. The prince is here? She nodded her head. Her face turned from embarrassment to worry. Mama, are you okay? Madame Luna gave her head a quick shake to compose her and lifted her chin. Her face returned to its cold expression. Do not let me catch you or any of the other mares wandering away from where you should be practicing, she ordered through her lips. Twilight nodded her head, still looking concerned, but scrambled off in the direction the other dancers had gone. Fluttershy stared up at the ballet's mistress, whose face returned to one of worry. She fidgeted slightly, biting her lips and glancing about wildly. Madame, are you okay? Fluttershy placed one hoof gently on the mare's arm. Is there anything I could get you? A glass of water, perhaps. Madame Luna finally acknowledges Fluttershy, but her expression did not change. Where did he go? Was all she asked. What was going on? He left with Sonna Fleur-de-Lis. They were going to discuss business matter, sex, in her dressing room. Madame Luna lifted an eyebrow at Fluttershy's statement. Well, he'll be occupied for some time. She muttered under her breath. I beg your pardon? Madame Luna looked at Fluttershy and smiled at her. Despite what the stage hoof had muttered about the mare, Fluttershy could tell the dance mistress truly had a warm heart of gold. Under the cold exterior, she showed, Thank you, my dear, but no, I'm truly fine. Without another word, she turned and quickly walked away, leaving the confused mare in her wake. Not awake. She was already awake. She woke up that morning, did the costumes, Fleur-de-Lis burned it, and now she's talking to Luna. What a weird day for her. Fleur-de-Lis, I must implode that I say. Fleur-de-Lis groaned. I gave Fancy Pants the cruelest of looks. Be gone! I do not have more important matters to discuss with the prince, and I do not need you breathing down my branch. Blouse. It's blouse. The word is blouse. Prince Blueblood couldn't help but chuckle at the prima donna's words. He stood just outside Fleur de Lis's dressing room, with Fancy Pants blocking the entranceway. The stallion was loyal, one could not deny that. It amazes the prince that despite Fleur de Lis's obvious displeasure for the stallion, he still willingly remade her lapdog. That is sad. I'm sorry, my dude. Fancy Pants continued to glance back and forth between the prince and Fleur de Lis with unease. He didn't like it when the stallion came for a visit. He didn't care if the stallion was rich or that he was the reason both he and Fleur de Lis had jobs at the mayor's opera house. He saw that the way his loving Fleur de Lis looked at the stallion and vice versa. Fleur de Lis sighed and realized it was time to resort to the other necessary battle moves. Fancy Pants, she said in a sweet, manipulated voice. Why do you worry? Do you think my adventure is in danger if I allow the prince in my dressing room? Yes. Fancy Pants bit his lip and shifted back and forth a little, glancing at the Fancy Pants with slight disgust. Fleur de Lis smiled and reached out to caress the tender's face. I admire your chivalry. You are truly my knight in shining armor. Her voice was dripping with fake sweetness, yet Fancy Pants was immersed. He was chuckling. I assure you I am be quite safe, and if I will cry out if I am in need, but I will be perfectly fine. And knowing you are near warms my heart and fills me with such. She leans in close and planted a small, meek kiss on the tender's lips. Passion. Whoa! She had won. Fancy Pants melted. That was a critical hit. Fancy Pants melted from the dressing room door and smiled bashfully at his lady love. He smiled back and winked at him. While she disappeared into the room, the prince meekly shrieked behind her. The second they had entered the dressing room, she slammed the door shut, locked it, and began to spit. Pah! That stench of him is all over me. I had to burn this dress. I'll have to burn this dress. Just watch it, dude. No need to burn. Just watch. The prince continued to smirk, placing his hat on the dressing table. He's quite attracted to you, more than ever, I see, and quite seriously. Fleur de Lis ground. Do not remind me, and to think I have to kiss him in the opera we are performing. Gah! She is by far like one of my favorite characters to voice act. She's so out there, and I love it. Great job, Alex. You really did a good job on her character. She squirreled and she felt two powerful hooves grabbed her by the shoulders and twirled her around. Ooh, somebody do that to me. She found him being pressed to the prince's body. Not that part. Not that part. Let me tell you that. And she went limp the second she felt his hard frame mold to her own. How will I be able to control myself then, seeing you on stage with him? One of the hooves went up to her hair and began to pull the pins out, causing the pink curls to fall across her shoulders and his arms. His hooves moved to her skirts and he began to hike them up to her hips, kissing him. His lips captured hers and she melted even more, returning to the passionate kiss that claws at his dress coat. The prince pulled back immediately. Careful! He hissed, removed her hose and looked at the coat if coat to be sure it wasn't damaged. It was quite expensive, I'll have you know. It's Gucci. Oh my god. Oh my god, I am done. Fleur-de-Lis pouted and folded her arms close crossly as he carefully removed the coat from his body. I don't seem to recall you ever feeling a need to be careful with expensive gowns. Oh, I don't ever seem to recall you ever feeling the need to be careful with expensive gowns. Gotta put in the voice. Gotta make it right. The prince grinned and purposely placed the car on top of a large white box and was sitting at the chair before his dressing table. Fleur-de-Lis's eyes followed where the coat went, and she looked at him for confirmation. When he nodded, she squealed happily and tore at the box like a filly at Christmas. She had to carefully remove the coat again. "Oh, monsieur, it smells beautiful," she whispered, pulling the elegant gown from the box. It was pink, with blue ruffled and black lace. There was a bowy train and a very low neckline that glittered in black with pink squiggled. Most ponies would look at such a gown and find it atrocious. However, the prince had long since learned that Fleur-de-Lis's taste in fashion was just that. "Now you can truly burn that gown," he chuckled, coming close to place kisses on the top of Fleur-de-Lis's neck, while his expert hooves began to undo the buttons of her present dress. "Oh, I know it. They're about to get it on." Woo! Fleur-de-Lis winced at his tight round back. I totally read that wrong, but okay. Fleur-de-Lis whimpered at his touch and leaned back against him. "It had been far too long, monsieur, since our last encounter. I was beginning to think you had forgotten about me." Aww, she has feelings, so she's not a monster. Don't you love it when a person has feelings and they're not a monster? Makes them connect while they're about to bang. Love it. "You," I said with mock horror, "never, Gaston, never." I'm so sorry. While one hoof continued to undo the button, the other climbed higher and began to sneak behind the branches of her dress. She moaned when his lips trickled her ears and he nobbled the loop slightly. "Now, I have a favor to ask you." Anything. Okay, I'll do it for you. Anything," she whimpered, leaning back and purposely pushing herself against him. He groaned at the moment, but years of experience had taught him self-control. "Good mare," he hissed, biting her neck briefly while the other hooves moved to lift up her skirts. "I want you to tell me." Her skirts were up to her thighs, man. "Everything you can." He pushed the stockings and garters down. "About the adorable little costume." Fleur-de-Lis's eyes opened wide. "Oh, you about to get it, boy." Fleur-de-Lis about to beat his ass. Opened his eyes, and she pushed the prince's hooves away before treating herself away from his body. "What?" Blue Blood sighed and closed his eyes momentarily to prepare himself for the strikes that were to follow. "Why the hell do you want to know anything about her? Her garbage, she's slime, she's Quiet." The prince snapped. "Do you want all of Mars to hear you?" Defiant Fleur-de-Lis's eyes grew wilder. "Buck Mars, I don't care if all of Mars hear me. Answer me, why do you want to know?" The princess stared back at Fleur-de-Lis, eager to wrap his hooves around the soprano's pretty neck and snap it in two. However, he knew the best way to handle situations like this was not to lose one's temper. And he could too play the same games that Fleur-de-Lis played with Fancy Pants. "Oh, damn. She activated his trap card, son." Ooh. "My sweet, I am only interested in knowing what all is going on in my theater," he crowed, putting on the most charming smile and slowly walking towards her. He hoped the passion that filled his eyes would weaken her. However, the prince realized it would take more coaxing, and Fleur-de-Lis was having none of it. "I am not a fool, Blue Blood," she snapped, using his first name. "Oh, damn, you know a girl is seriously pissed off of you if she uses your first name. You know, if she uses your first name, you gotta ask, baby, what's wrong? If not, then your ass is gonna get beat, or your ass is gonna feel in a lot of hell right now, boy." Oh my god. I am so sorry for this. I am so sorry. I know it's not professional. I'm just having fun. You think I know nothing about your infamous reputation? Yeah, because there's Infamous 1 and Infamous 2, the second son. Come on! Keep it up, son. Oh my god, you guys must think I'm a weirdo. You think I know nothing about your infamous reputation? You think I know nothing about the countless mares and dancers you bedded? You think I don't know that one of the main reasons you patronize the opera house is so you can arouse a pretty young face with a mouth wide and open and willing? That was before I met you. Blue Blood lied, straight up lied to her face, coming to her to strides. I will not deny my past, but the moment I saw you perform on stage and heard your voice, you alone are the only man I think about, dream about. His hooves sneaked down in the hem of her skirts and began to lift them once again. And want to buck, the sun comes up. Just change the F and you got the other word. Fleur-de-Lis melted slightly in his lips, and his words soon his lips. Especially as she lifted her hooves, moved under the skirts, and softly brushed her thighs. Still, even tied to some self-control. Why do you want to care about who she is? She whimpered, her lips growing dry as she felt his hooves inch closer. Blue Blood groaned as he could tell he was winning the battle. "My dear, do you not say that she was a mare was incompetent?" Oh, he's getting the gut. He used motherfucking force field thing card. Mirror force. There you go. She whimpered, okay. Did you not say that? His lips brushed against hers and his hooves inched higher. Fleur-de-Lis moaned and melted even more, licking her lips and trembling beneath his touch. That is true. Good news, everyone. Yes, it is. And you are not happy. Fleur-de-Lis was gripping the dressing table and pressing against his body. I only want to make you happy, Fleur-de-Lis. I only want to give you pleasure. He could see from the expression on her face that she would tell him anything as long as he didn't stop. Her name, Fleur-de-Lis. He huskily whispered. Tell me her name. She couldn't take it anymore. Fluttershy. Oh! Fluttershy. She shouted, throwing her arms around her neck and kissing him passionately, while he lifted her body with one arm and the other cleared the dressing table before placing her down on top of it. Thank you, my dear. You will not regret it. Nor would he. He muttered to himself. Already he was imagining the pretty costume pony as the one before him, but he had learned from the time his father had taken him to a brothel at the age of 14 to make a stallion of himself. Quotations in the air. Any mare could be easily bought at the right price. Sometimes it took money, sometimes jewels or other expensive gifts, sometimes even words of affection and love. But every mare had a price, and it only took Prince Blue Blood a little time to learn what it was before luring the mare to his bed. Fleur-de-Lis definitely suited his purposes. He knew she was once a star in Italy and with the right publicity, he could make her a star in France and get more money into his pockets. And if that meant having to come every now and then and listen to her Italy and complain before finally moving on to normal business, as he referred to, then so be it. Whatever it took for him to get after what he wanted. She smiled at his own reflection in the mirror and continued to look at himself, thinking of all the wealth he was acquiring from Fleur de Lis's so-called talents, thinking into the next escapado ball. Bending the costumers, she looked young, full of country vulture, and loved breaking Burlington. She would be the most eager student. He grinned. Yes, he would be soon seduce her into his bed, and grin much pleasure to himself from her. Fleur de Lis was business, but the costumier would be pleasure. He would love mixing the two together. He thought all these things while he smiled at his own reflection. Madame Luna hurried down the steps that led to Discord's lair, her face pale and covered with worried lines. She carefully avoided the passages that she knew were booby traps. While they all hurried as fast as she could, over the corner of their eyes she saw a shadowy figure. "Where is she?" she called out to it. "Where is he?" she called out to it. The figure made a groan sound, then painted off to the right. She nodded her head and took the passenger and figure had nodded. The sound of music lifted the curvature before her. She knew she would not be pleased to interrupt while working. Disco, she called out, while she caressed and candle-lit cabin. The organ music stopped and the caved figure stood, his shoulders thumped slightly before striking his back. "I am very busy. What is it?" She stopped and flew a few feet away from him, panting and clutching her breath, while she tried to regain her composure. He's here." Discord turned and faced Mask, and a vivid eyebrow arched in suspicion. "Prince Blueblood?" he simply asked. Madame Luna looked at him with surprise. You know?" she asked. Her breathing slowly returned to normal. Discord waved his paw in a blessed manner. It's my theater, is it not?" he said before adding under his breath, "Despite what the son of a flea thinks." He reassured himself at the organ and began to play. Besides, it was rather hard to ignore the harpy's shrieks. "Dude, I hear you, man. And so does everybody around a 5-block radius when a girl shrieks." God. Madame Luna was surprised with how cool Discord was behaving. Normally he would fly into rages when he learned that Prince was at the opera house. Discord despised Prince Blueblood, and she could not blame him. The stallion wore the mask of gentle cold. When it true, he was more of a monster than Discord could ever be. True, Discord had committed acts of terror and murder, but the prince, his crimes were so much hideous to the dance mistress, especially since she knew he was responsible for impregnating three of her dancers over the past 5 years. One mare died when seeking cure means to have an abortion. Oh, that's sad. While the others two were thrown out into the streets with nowhere to go and no money. Madame Luna had no idea what had happened to them, and she cursed the prince for ruining all 3 lives. She also knew the enemy in Discord despised the prince, so why was he acting so nonchalant? You do not care?" she asked, not daring to come around and face him, but unsure what else to do or say. Discord's response for despising the prince was somewhat difficult. Like the current managers, Prince cared very little for art and music, and more for the money that rolled into the opera house, while the prince was a patron. He also had a stock of the opera house, and 10% of the profits from every performance were straight into his pockets. The prince was also the one responsible for placing Fleur de Lis at the opera house, a sin that Discord would never forgive the stallion for. Yet the crime that Discord had over the prince more than other was what he did to Pinkamena Pie, a dancer Discord fancied himself in love with when he was much younger. Discord was only 19 when he saw the mare on stage for the first time. She was beautiful, curled pink hair, and large, soft brown eyes. Does she have brown eyes? I thought she had blue eyes. She spent her poems and flowers thinking she would find it romantic, and she had that she had a secret admirer at the opera. However, his lovesick dreams were dashed when Prince Blueblood, a boy of 16 at the time, easily seduced the starstruck mare, making her believe he was the one who had sent her those flowers and poems. That just sucks, man. What kind of bullshit is that? Discord was wanting to interfere, but feared if he relieved himself, a mob would despair his whereabouts and force him back to the life he had long escaped. So he waited and plotted. Oh my god, I'm sorry. Alright, so he waited and plotted. Now he would have make the young prince pay. Pinkamena was a foolish mare. He believed the young Blueblood truly loved her, and that the two were going to run away and get married. She abandoned her dreams of performing for a scandal, a word. Disappearing early one cold November morning, never to be seen again. It wasn't until after the death of Blueblood's father that the prince returned to the opera house some 3 years ago. No one knew what had become of Pinkamena, and the prince did not seem upset at all. The stallion was a snake. Discord saw how he strode about the theater as if he owned it, giving musicians advice, telling the managers how to run the business, and bleeding chorus, mares, and dancers along the way. The time would have come when he would have his revenge for all the attributes the prince had put him through. The revenge was a dish best served cold, and simply killing the stallion was too polite. No, Discord would have his revenge when the time was right, and it would be a long, agonizing revenge, one full of screaming and begging. The little joy made him smile, and he easily regained his cool demeanor, despite his random outburst of anger, of rage. It was the show of emotion that Madame Luna feared most. She could not think what else to say, and she seemed so engrossed in his music, and she turned and began to walk away. Yet before she left, he called out to her. "I've seen the violinist's daughter," he said curiously. Madame Luna paused and slowly turned back. "And?" "She is very pretty. You did not tell me that." "Oh, damn, we gotta look at boys," he said with a simple wave of his paw before turning the page of the score before him. And she appeared to be a hard worker. He cared for costumes and impressive. Her care for costumes is impressive, he added, but what I admire about her most is the way she refused to give Fleur de Lis the satisfaction of thanking her, quotations, for the opportunity of working under her. He chuckled. Madame Luna gave a small smile, but sighed sadly. I fear Fleur de Lis will make her life a living hell. Fleur de Lis makes everyone's lives a living hell, Discord grumbled. At least she had the courage to stand up to the harpy, despite the so-called accident that the dog did to her. Channel friendly Christian channel. Metaluna bowed, frowning and confused. Accident? It doesn't matter. Disco rapidly, casually turned the page to score. The violinist nodded very well too. They both can stay so as long as they continue to obey the rules. Metaluna nodded her head and turned to leave, but Discord called out to her one last time. I have a note for you to deliver. Rarity has it. See her before you leave. Okay. Rarity has it. See her before you leave. Why did I have trouble on that? Madame Luna nodded her head again, finally leaving the relative retrieval the letter had written. Discord had written. That was a bunch of words I was not planning on saying to them. He listened to her descending footsteps while he continued to play the sweet chords of music written before him. He noted out of the corner of his eyes a hunched figure approach. I'm busy, Derpy. Oh, Derpy. I'm busy, Derpy. You know, I do not wish to be disturbed while working, he said icily. A hunched figure remained in the shadows, but nodded its large head. Forgive me, master, she slowly replied. Her words shuddered slightly. I just couldn't help overhearing. It's you were talking about the customer. Discord nodded his head and lifted his gaze from his music. Yes? And what of it? The figure shuffled her feet a little before finally responding. I like her. She seems different. Nice. Like the gypsy mare. Discord paused and looked at the hunched figure. Gypsy mare? Derpy nodded her large head. Yes, from the stories that Rarity tells us. Like the one with the hunchback and the Citadel. Discord rolled his eyes and groaned and quickly resumed his playing. There's no such person, Derpy. It was a story. Simple as that. The hunched figure shifted her feet nervously, her voice barely above a whisper. But Rarity says... Discord's claw and paw had come crashing down in the organ. There is no such pony! He shouted, his voice echoing throughout the cavern of the passageways. Derpy gave a cry of fear and quickly backed away, molding her large frame to the stone wall, as if the hopes of the shadows would keep her safe. Discord sighed and took several long breaths before lifting his head and speaking again, his tone icy but calm. There is no gypsy, Derpy. There is no man on this earth like that. He sighed a last time before finally lifting his eyes to where the hunched figure stood, shaking. Beautiful mares in silence do not fall in love with monsters like us. That is the reality of it. And it's better that you learn this now before you do something foolish and risk hurting yourself. Oh, he just cares about her. Derpy nodded her head, and as she understood, although she made the sudden sobbing sound before retreating down the passageway, her sobs filling the cavern all around. Discord sighed and curled his head with his paws. Damn that mare! Somehow she was to blame for this. He recalled the cruel sense of the prince and Fleur de Lis together in her dressing room. He followed his angry shrieks to see if his suspicions were correct. And yes, there was the prince attempting to win her affection with seductive lies, while Discord was a spy. He was no Vanir and had no intention of watching the two ponies he desperately despised most become wild animals with one another. But before he turned to leave the disgusting sight, he heard the prince ask for the name of the new customer. Fleur de Lis finally concurred, telling him what he wanted to hear, and was thus rewarded for what he had come to the opera house for all along. Discord hated the stallion, but normally did nothing to stop his seduction and rendivisions with the mares of the opera house, and they were more concerned about the prince's thoughts of them they were not fit to be a part of his theater. However, Discord felt a strange urge within him to protect the violinist's daughter from the hooves of the handsome monster. He wasn't entirely sure why, and he didn't entirely feel the way of Pinkamena, but he felt compelled to keep a close watch on the mare, to make sure that her virtue, if she had any, wasn't turned into anything, and turned into a plaything for the prince. Yet now her supposed sweet nature was having an effect on Derpy, and he did not need those that he took care of to be filled with such foolish notions like love and romance. Love got him nothing. He knew that if he had revealed himself to Pinkamena long ago, she would have rebuffed him the second she saw his face. Indeed, love was not meant for creatures like him. The thought filled Discord with such rage that he punched his claw and paw to the organ keys till blood flowed in time with the music. Oh my god. Alright, so, wow, 56 minutes going into 57. Oh my god, okay. So first of all, I read that whole thing without stopping. I did mess up a little bit, but that's fine. I don't think it's something to be like too worried about. But oh my god, great story. I really like it. I really like the chapter. I read it before, but it was a long time ago. But going back to it, it's really nice. I like it. I love the character of Fleur de Lis. Prince Blueblood, I could see his character developing a little bit more, since this is a little bit of a long series. There's about like 47 chapters so far, and I'm only on chapter 3, but so far the introductions of Prince Blueblood, Discord we're still learning a little bit more about. Fluttershy, I feel like will develop into it even more character. She has a lot of potential so far, and I really like it. Plymouth Lab, they're just second hit stage. I hope Fluttershy does develop a relationship with Twilight, like she becomes her best friend or something. Like that'd be really nice to see. I don't know, but this is just my thoughts and whatnot. Anyways, I really do hope you enjoyed this reading, especially you Melissa. This reading is dedicated for you, and thank you so much for sending all those messages. It really does mean a lot. Thank you, everybody, and I hope to see you in the next one, Chapter 4. Sooner or later. I don't know. We'll see.